Hello, my pack, my tribe. Welcome to Mysteries and Mayhem. So, this is actually an old show I did an episode or two of, and then kind of abandoned it for a little bit. This is not my paranormal stuff necessarily. This has more to do with cults and conspiracies and things of that nature, things that just pissed me off. Social injustice. Things like that. And tonight's show is about a subject that has become something of an obsession, I guess you could say, with me. Tonight we're talking about Scientology. More specifically, I want to discuss the Danny Masterson trial and verdict, or lack thereof, as it were. So, because I'm not worried about monetization at this point, and I have a warning stating that this is explicit, I can say the word rape. And that's what Danny Masterson is accused of. Several counts of rape. And not just women that were Scientologists, which are the ones that are actually involved in the trial. There were victims that weren't Scientologists. There were victims that were everyday women that and this pattern of behavior with him. And by the way, if you don't know who Danny Masterson is, he played Hyde on that 70s show. He's a longtime Scientologist. He actually grew up in Scientology. Laura Prepon, he played forget her name, the redhead. Donna, thank you. I knew it was something with the D. Who played Donna is also a Scientologist and a close friend of Danny Masterson. Or was. I don't know if they still are. But neither here nor there. So, here's the situation, right? Scientology, it is considered basically a high crime or sin to report any Scientologist to the authorities for a crime. Right? That's not to say that they get off scot-free when they do something. They're handled or they see, it's kind of weird, and I don't know all of it, but they go through conditions, I believe it's called, which is basically Scientology therapy, I guess, and corrective measures. So it was reported in Scientology. It just wasn't reported to the real authorities, the police. And by the way, it is very obvious through this trial, if you haven't been following along, that Scientology has at least one, if not two, cops that were involved in their pocket. Just like they did with the whole Shelley Miscavige disappearance thing, which, if you don't know about that, I can suggest two sources of information for you. One is, actually three. One is the TV show that was on A&E called Leah Remini, Scientology in the Aftermath. You will learn everything you need to know watching that show, and it is mind-blowing, some of it. So I highly recommend that. I also recommend Leah and Mike Render's podcast, Scientology Fair Game. And for those of you who don't know who Mike Render is, I'm going to guess you've been living under a rock. He was one of the highest ranking officials of Scientology for a lot of years. He's basically the third man on the totem pole, so to speak. He was the head of the Office of Special Affairs, which is Scientology's basic division that deals with purported enemies and seeks to destroy them. Not necessarily physically, but, they'll do things like show up and loudly in front of a crowd accuse a subject of being a child molester, whatever. But that's the kind of thing that OSA, or the Office of Special Affairs, does. And Mike Render was the leader of OSA for a lot of years. Anyways, so that's who Mike Render is. And Leah Remini was in the show King of Queens with Kevin James. She was his wife. The saucy little Italian girl. At least I'm guessing she was Italian on that show. I don't really remember, to be honest. Anyway, it's not the point. So there's those two avenues. And the third is there's a gentleman by the name of Aaron Smith 11 who has been making videos about this whole case pretty much from the beginning. And his channel is called Growing Up in Scientology. And he did. And he escaped from them. Pretty much like a lot of other people that do podcasts and YouTube videos and stuff concerning the subject, were ex-Scientologists who escaped. Mark Headley is another one who literally escaped from what they call gold, I believe. If I remember correctly, gold or gold base is this massive complex near Hemet, California. He literally escaped on his motorcycle and wrote a book about it. And I don't recall the name of the book right off the top of my head, but if you look up Mark Headley, Headley, you can find his book and a lot of information, I'm sure, about him, including Scientology's hate website, which I'm kind of wondering if they have one about me yet. And if not, I guess I have to try harder. So basically, this is what happened with the whole Danny Masterson thing, right? So he is a lifelong Scientologist. He sexually assaulted quite a few women. More than when he used narcotics, like GHB or roofies, to accomplish this, I'm assuming. And he is currently on trial for it. Has been on trial for it for several weeks now. And the jury was sent to deliberate, and I believe it was yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, like Friday, I think. They announced that they were deadlocked, which to me, I don't know what's going on with it. I don't know if that jury has Scientologists on it, or plants that work for Scientology, or anything of that nature, but I can't believe that they're deadlocked. I can't believe anybody would hear the things that he's been accused of from the victims of these crimes, who, by the way, their real names have not been identified in the trial. They're all Jane Doe 1, Jane Doe 2, etc., etc. And I believe there was there's actually 3 who are bringing charges, but there's a 4th one who testified. And what Aaron Smith Levin was saying on his YouTube channel was that it didn't seem to be very helpful. I don't know. Wasn't there, didn't hear it. So all I can do is speculate. But I know just from the little bits of information that came out, including there's an episode of, if I'm remembering this correctly, there's actually an episode of Leah Remini's Scientology in the Aftermath, the TV show, in which one of the quote-unquote Jane Does actually talks about what happened. And so this isn't like one isolated thing. This is like a pattern of behavior with this guy. All right. So, I mean, to me, without the shadow of a doubt, he's guilty. And they need to throw the book at him as far as I'm concerned. But I'm not a judge, and I'm also not a juror. And it's probably a good thing that I'm not, because, you know, if I had my way, there'd barely even be a trial before the verdict. So I guess in the sense of justice working, it's kind of a good thing that they were deadlocked, because it means that there's some serious thought going into this. So in my heart of hearts, I believe that he will ultimately be convicted. And I think the whole being deadlocked right now thing may even later on play into the fact that it shows that there was serious thought involved in this whole process. And that means that there's going to be no excuses for him when he is convicted. And I believe he will be. He better be. Is all I'm going to say about that. Because, you know, it's out now. And public opinions involved. And there are people out there, some of which I'm sure are related to the victims, that would have no qualms about beating the shit out of him on a daily basis. You know what I mean? Like, I know if I was like the father or the brother or the cousin or uncle or whatever of one of these girls, and I found out about it, and let's say, for argument's sake, that he's acquitted, that doesn't mean he's getting off scot-free. He's going to have to look over his shoulder for the rest of his life. Because I would hunt the fucker down every day for the rest of his life. And here's the thing. Here's why I would get away with it, by the way. I wouldn't say a word to him. I wouldn't even approach him. But I would make damn sure he knew I was there. But it would be so on the other side of that line that I couldn't be charged with anything. I couldn't be charged with stalking. I couldn't be charged with anything because I wouldn't even come up to him. I'd stay like across the street maybe. But I'd make sure that everywhere he went, he would see my face. And if you don't think that wouldn't fuck with somebody's head, oh, you're sadly mistaken. Because, as far as I'm concerned, there is no way, one way or the other, that this guy is going to get off scot-free. If he is acquitted, it wouldn't entirely surprise me if he ended up dead, to be honest. Because somebody's going to want to kill this dude for all the shit that he's done. The safest place for this guy to be is in prison getting butt raped by Bubba. So that he knows what it felt like for his victims. That would be the safest place for him, honestly, because there's going to be enough people out there that are going to want to do him harm. Now, if I was in charge of the justice system, I would do the same thing that this judge is doing, and she is fantastic, by the way. I don't remember her name off the top of my head, but you can look it up. You can Google Danny Masterson trial and find out. She suffers no bullshit, and she hasn't from either side during this whole case. And she's been very strict about how Scientology can be brought into the trial and how it cannot be brought into the trial. And she's been enforcing it the whole way. Which is what you want in a judge. Because they're not going to suffer any bullshit. They're going to hear both sides. You know what I mean? Like that's a good judge. So, I don't really understand. I mean, I'm not worried about the whole jury being deadlocked thing. I don't really understand why. I mean, because, yeah, I'm probably biased. I can admit that. But to me, still, it's cut and dry. He did it. Period. End of discussion. It's not even a question whether or not he did it. The only question, and I think this is what the jury's actually struggling with right now, is whether or not the prosecution proved it beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's where it gets iffy. It could go either way because of one simple fact. These assaults, these sexual assaults on these women happened years ago. So there's no physical evidence that I'm aware of. There's no anything in the way of tangible evidence. It's all circumstantial. But I'm sorry to tell you Michael Jackson fans out there this. I can't prove that dude molested kids. But come on, we know he molested kids. On paper, he's a fucking super child molester, that guy. Other child molesters are like, hey kid, want a piece of candy? He's like, I got a roller coaster. You know what I mean? Like, same kind of thing. We know he did it. Come on. Who are we kidding? The only people that don't believe that he did anything wrong is Danny's family. And I'm sure even them, some of them are having doubts or even know the truth. Maybe not all, but at least some of them, in their heart of hearts, know that Danny did it. Right? But here's the thing. If he is convicted, Scientology is fucked. Because of one thing. The reason these women didn't come forward years ago when these assaults actually happened is because Scientology got in the way of it, which is obstruction of justice. And here's the thing about that. If Scientology is brought to trial for obstruction of justice charges, they will lose their tax-exempt status. Now, I'm sure Scientology will always exist in some form or another, but if they lose their tax-exempt status, they're completely fucked. Because they cannot justify anything when it comes to that. They have this thing called Ideal Org, right? And basically what that is David Miscavige is fundraising from parishioners of Scientology, mainly, and probably some outside ventures too. Putting up these quote-unquote ideal buildings that are worth like millions of dollars, and they're sitting there empty. Because the truth is there's not enough Scientologists in the world to fill these buildings that they keep building everywhere. The only thing it's doing is so that he could say, oh, look how big we are. We're everywhere. But they're really not. I think what they said on Aaron's show, Growing Up in Scientology, is that there's only like 30,000 Scientologists worldwide. What they're actually claiming is that there's like millions of them. They're everywhere. But it's simply not true. And because of the stuff he's doing and the stuff that Mike Renner is doing. By the way, he just wrote a book called A Billion Years. Fucking read it. Or get the audio book. I think Audible has it. Because he actually narrates it himself. And it is fascinating stuff. and it will blow your fucking mind. Like not even just the Scientology stuff of it either. Just some of the stories will fucking blow you away. Like, there's a part of the book where he talks about when Lisa Marie Presley was married to Michael Jackson, and I guess he wasn't ever going to be a Scientologist. Is the sense that we get, but he was given a tour of I forget what building it was, but there's it's kind of like a Scientology museum in this place. And Mike was, showing him around and stuff. And I guess the idea is to make him more accepting of it, not necessarily to pull him into Scientology, but, to make him accepting of it so that it wouldn't hinder, Lisa Marie in that particular, endeavor. So he's being led on this tour and he starts acting really paranoid, like diving to the floor, looking around like somebody's after him, kind of thing. So he was a wackadoo even then, and that was back in, I want to say, like late 90s. Or I don't remember exactly when Lisa Marie Presley and Michael Jackson were together, but it was in that time frame, whatever it was. So he tells stories in his book like that. He tells stories about a lot of the things he went through, with his, family, and the whole disconnection that, went on, and how that all came about. And it's amazing stuff. So definitely read it. But I believe, if memory serves, Aaron mentioned that in that book, there's something in there about Danny Masterson as well. So my point is everybody fucking knows he did it. Regardless of what side they're on, we all know he did it. The only question now is whether the prosecution proved it enough that the jury is going to agree, ultimately. Because I promise you, even if he's acquitted, he's not getting off scot-free. Somebody's going to go after this guy. In fact, he got knocked the fuck out by hockey player Chris Shupp.
When was that?
This was like, I want to say a couple years ago. Okay. And I don't recall all of the details, but Chris Shupp, I believe, was dating the actress Jennifer Esposito at the time. And Danny came up and was saying some shit you don't really say to a woman, especially when she's with a hockey player. And Chris Shupp knocked him the fuck out, beat the shit out of him. And all I can say is, thank you, Chris Shupp. Because if nothing else, that puts a smile on my face. Anyways, so it looks like, according to what I heard, is that the jury is going to reconvene after Thanksgiving. And I don't know, I don't remember exactly when, but it's going to be after Thanksgiving. And hopefully there'll be a verdict soon, one way or the other. I honestly don't think that either way it's going to work out for Danny. And it certainly isn't going to work out for Scientology in general, because David Miscavige, the fucking Hitler of Scientology himself, is involved in a trial situation right now. He's actually on the run from process servers who are currently trying to serve him with court papers for this civil trial. And nobody can seem to find him. Because he's a total fucking pussy.
He's hiding out at gold.
No, he's not at gold. Or if he is at gold, he's being hidden at gold. Exactly. So that nobody can find him. Mm-hmm. Which doesn't fucking matter. It's neither here nor there. Well, actually, where he most likely is on their ship, the Freelands. Which is what part of this fucking trial is about. Also, by the way, because the Freelands has been at sea for years, taking Scientologists across lines into other countries without fucking passports. Which is, it's basically a violation of immigration policies and passport policies. And yes, the argument could be made if any one of those individuals were to testify that they were there against their will, it is kidnapping and human trafficking too, which makes it a criminal case. Eventually. So either way, I don't think Scientology, like I said, Scientology in some form or another is going to exist no matter what, because there's enough people out there that are drinking the Kool-Aid, so to speak, that it'll never completely die out. That's my opinion. However, if even one person testifies that they were there against their will, there goes Scientology's tax-exempt status. And if they lose that tax-exempt status, they're in a world of hurt, because there's so much money that they've spent on these fucking ideal org buildings that they have to justify. And they can't, because none of those buildings are full. Not one. They're all empty. If they're not empty, then it's basically operated by a skeleton crew of, Sea Org, most likely. Sea Org, by the way, for those that don't know, is the elite of the elite in Scientology. It's basically the I'm trying to think of how to term this. It's basically like the priestly or administrative, or not administrative, ministry arm of Scientology. It is where all the high-ranking officials of Scientology are from, basically. So David Miscavige was Sea Org. Mike Rinder was Sea Org. High-ranking officials in Scientology, they're Sea Org, basically. And then, like, all the peons that work directly under them are pretty much Sea Org. And that's where the whole billion years thing comes from. Because in order to be a member of Sea Org, you have to sign a contract that's for 1 billion years. Because they believe in a very fucked up version of reincarnation. So, yeah. Basically, the only reason they got tax-exempt status anyways is because under David Miscavige, the individual IRS agents involved in their case, I guess you'd call it, were fair gamed by Scientology. They were intimidated. They were threatened. They were harassed. They were blackmailed. And this isn't one agent alone. This is several different agents that worked on that case. Trying to, they actually weren't even trying to discover whether or not they deserved tax-exempt status. They knew they didn't. They were trying to find a way to, basically deny them and disband Scientology for all intents and purposes. Until David Miscavige pulled his bullshit with, sicking his OSA dogs after him. And, can you imagine what it must be like for those 4 IRS agents? They, just doing their job, and they work, probably long hours, and they come home to see the wife and kids, and, maybe relax, drink a beer, watch a football game, and just forget, all the shit they have to deal with every day for a little bit. When you pull into your driveway and get out of your car, and you're swarmed and harassed by a shit ton of fucking Scientologists, many of whom are sitting there probably holding fucking signs, like a protest, claiming that, you're a pedophile, or you did this nasty thing, or that nasty thing, or, you embezzled money, or whatever the fuck it is. Right? And your neighbors are around watching this whole thing go down, and they're hearing what they're saying. And they're reading the signs, even if they can't, make it clear any other way. So, it's just a total fucked situation for Scientology. I can't see any situation where they come out of all of this. The Danny Masterson trial, the attempted trial with David Miscavige, any of it. I can't see any of it going their way. And the only way I can see it, ultimately coming out is it blowing up in their face. But, I'm not a Scientologist. I've never been a Scientologist. But I have had experiences with Scientology, which is a topic for another day. But I do have some insight into how they think, how they operate, how they brainwash people. and to believe in their bullshit. And that's all it is, by the way, bullshit. Because it was created by L. Ron Hubbard, who was a science fiction writer. And he was good at writing science fiction. How can I say that? Because I've read it. I've read a lot of his fiction. So the thing is like, there's nothing about Scientology, ultimately, that is really good. I mean, there's things in there that are good. You know, they're like treating people with respect, believing in yourself. Those kinds of things are really good. However, as you go further and further up what they call the bridge, which is, you know, these lists basically to make it, you know, simple for stupid. And by stupid, I mean me. It's this list of goals that you have to accomplish, right? Because if you're not going up the bridge, you're not really a Scientologist. And that's what they call it, by the way, is the bridge to total freedom. And, you know, if you want to know more about the different stages, I highly suggest seeing Leah Remini's show, The Aftermath. Anyways, that is about all the time I have for now. My pack, my tribe. Peace out.